Aloha class, I wanted to do a video for in-class assignment number 23, and then this is also your lecture for chapter 9, part 2. So before we get into the true and false, I'm going to go to the PowerPoint. Responsibility accounting has responsibility centers, and so there's cost centers, there's profit centers, and there's investment centers. And each of them has their role, and so a segment whose manager has control over costs but not over revenues or investments would be a cost center. This would be HR or accounting or legal or manufacturing facilities are classified as cost centers. For our profit centers, the manager has control over costs and revenues but no control over investments. And finally, your investment center has probably the most responsibilities because they have control over costs, revenues, and investments in operating assets. So I have a few slides that you can classify if it's a cost, profit, or investment center. So this is a manufacturing facility or a production facility, and as you look at that, would be a cost, profit, or investment center. And this would be a cost center, just like it said in the slide. It's a manufacturing facility. This is a manager over an amusement theme park, so roller coasters and entertainment manager. This is him. So is this a cost, profit, or investment center? I would say this is probably a profit center because he has control over, maintaining the rides and the expenses of employing the employees. Also has control over the sales that are made that day. But this specific manager probably doesn't have the control to invest in a new amusement park. There's probably somebody higher than him that has that control or authority. The cost, profit, or investment center, we have our accounting and our law and our admin office. Just like the cost center slide said, this is a cost center because they only have control over costs. And then finally, the GM CEO. This would definitely be an investment center because the CEO would have the ability to invest in a new branch or a new car dealership, also control over costs and profits. And so let's look at our in-class assignment 23. A responsibility center is a business segment whose manager has control over costs, revenues, or investments in operating assets. And so this would be true. That's our responsibility center. They have control over costs or revenues or investments or all of the above. But this is true, that responsibility center. Net operating income is earnings before interest and taxes. EBIT, this is EBIT, also known as EBIT in finance. So if we go previously to net operating income that we learned last time, net operating income is income before interest and taxes, also known as EBIT, or you could say EBIT, more for finance. But this is true. Net operating income is earnings before interest and taxes. And then number 3, true or false. Suppose a company evaluates divisional performance using both ROI and residual income. The company's minimum required rate of return for the purposes of residual income calculations is 12%. If a division has a residual income of $6,000, then ROI is greater than 12%. So if you can recall from last in-class assignment number 22, problem 6, the ROI was a specific amount, and that was exactly the same as the required rate of return or minimum required rate of return. So if the required rate of return is 12 and the ROI is 12, your residual income should be 0. And that's what happened last time with in-class assignment 22. The ROI and the minimum required rate of return was equal, and so that's why residual is 0. Residual income was $0. If residual income is a positive number, then you've exceeded, your ROI is greater than your minimum required rate of return. And if you have a negative residual income, so maybe I can write that just to make it a little more clear. So ROI equal to minimum if that's equal, then that means your residual income is $0. $0. If residual income is positive, residual is positive number, like positive 6,000, that means that ROI is greater than your minimum required rate of return. And then in problem number 5, our ROI is going to be less than our minimum required rate of return, and so that will give us a negative residual income, or residual income less than 0. And so if we are not meeting our minimum required rate of return, then we shouldn't be investing. But over here we do have a residual income, so that must mean that ROI is greater than what we're requiring. So this is true. This would be this scenario. Is positive 6,000, and so minimum, it's greater than minimum required rate of return. What are 3 ways to increase ROI? So the 3 ways to increase ROI, you can refer to the slide, which is this slide right here. We're going to increase sales, reduce expenses, or reduce assets. So any one of these will decrease ROI. So because we have our numerator of net operating income on the top of our equation and our denominator of average operating assets, in order to increase a ratio, you would need to increase the numerator or decrease the denominator. And so this one increases the numerator, this one increases the numerator, and the reducing average operating assets on the denominator would be decreased, and that's how you would increase your ROI or ratio. So that's the way, those 3. So I'll have you list those. Use the information for the next 4 questions. And I mean next 4 questions, I mean these ones. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe I won't say that, but I mean these 4 questions. Calculate margin, calculate turnover, calculate ROI, and calculate residual income. So maybe I'll take that out. But I'll have you calculate margin, turnover, ROI, just like we did last time. I will calculate residual income, and I told you before it's going to be negative, meaning that our ROI is going to be smaller than our minimum required rate of return. So let's keep that in mind. So net operating income minus our average operating assets times it by the minimum required rate of return. Go back to the formula. So average operating assets, so make sure you do your parentheses first. NOI is 1,145,200, and then we'll minus parenthesis AOA is 7 million, times it by 18%, and let's see what we're gonna get here. 7 million times it by 18%, so 1.26 million. So I'm just copying that number, and now I've calculated that inside parentheses, which was 1.26 million. So 1,145,200 minus 1,260,000, and now we do have a negative residual income, which can happen, which just means that our ROI is not meeting our required rate of return. So 114,800, and that's a negative number. Negative 114,800 would be our answer. So with that said, just know that your ROI will be less than 18% in this problem, and I'll have you calculate these 3 problems: margin, turnover, ROI. And now number 6 is a brand new problem. So number 6 is a brand new problem, has average operating assets of 100,000, required rate of return 20%, and the division period, the division earns, in the current period, the division earns 30,000. So they earn maybe net operating income of 30,000. I think they just need to be a little more specific in that problem. So we're just calculating residual income again, and NOI minus AOA times it by minimum required rate of return. So we have 30,000 minus 100,000 times by 20%. 100,000 times by 20% is probably just 20,000, but you can always use a calculator to double check yourself. 100,000 times by 20%. So our residual income is 10,000. What is the division's ROI? ROI would be net operating income divided by average operating assets, hopefully this is getting easier, so you know that formula. So NOI, again, this is NOI divided by average operating assets. 60,000 divided by 300,000. 20%, 0.2 or 20%. You could times that by 100 to make it a percentage. 20%. And let's keep going. Redmond Awning, a division of Wrap-Up Corp, has a net operating income of 60,000, average operating assets of 30,000. Sounds familiar. If the manager of the division is evaluated based on ROI, he wants to make an investment of 100,000. That would generate an additional net operating income of 18,000 per year. So just evaluating, will she want to make an investment of 100,000? What is their ROI right now? And then is this investment going to meet their ROI? So right now they're making 60,000 net operating income. We did this before, right? 60,000 divided by 300,000. They're making a 20% NOI right now. 60,000 divided. Should we invest? So now just looking at this project separately, let's look at it as a separate, its own separate investment. So should we invest 18,000? And it'll give us an additional net operating income of 18,000 divided by the investment. Right, so if we were never to do this one, we wouldn't know. But if we want to invest 100,000, we're going to make 18,000 net operating income. So just this individual investment. What kind of return is this individual investment going to make me? 18,000 divided by 100,000 equals 18%. So should I invest? What's the question? Will she want to make an investment? Will she want to make 18% when she's normally making 20% ROI? I would say no, I wouldn't want to invest in this unless it's equal or greater to my ROI now. And it is not greater, so 18% is less than 20%, I would not invest in this. And I'll continue on with 9 and 10 in the next video.